Hey crafty friends, it's Joy here for Honeybee Stamps, and today I've created a card using the Lovely Layers Amaryllis die set. So you have this sheet that shows you how to put these together. They really are super simple. I love the Lovely Layers collection from Honeybee Stamps. I just think they're such pretty dies. I have die cut all of my pieces from white cardstock, and I'm going to use Copic markers to color them in. So this is the little bulb, and I used Y19 and YR23 on this. I have decided to do one flower. You could do multiples of flowers on here, but I wanted to only do one. I'm laying these out because I want to make sure I know exactly where I want to color. I would say color the whole image, but if you're doing shading and highlights, where you can tell you really need to color is where there is embossed detail on the dies. So I'm doing that part first, and then I'm going to come in with the lightest color of red. So I'm using R35, 37, and 39. I want to make sure I'm seeing all of the areas I need to see. I want to have darker areas and lighter areas, so I will line up some of my die cuts to kind of see how that's working. So where you see I'm using the 3 colors of markers are the layers that you will see once you have all of these put together. And really coloring it this way is super quick. But if this is not something you want to do, just die cut it from colored cardstock and it will be just as beautiful. So this whole bottom part here, you're not going to see. You're just going to see the stamens, which I will use the Y19 and the YR23. Then you have these other petals, 3 other little petals that you will adhere together. So I'm going to add my shadows onto that. I am adding a little bit of color to the outside edge because I could see a little bit of white and it was bothering me. So I did take the marker and just add a little bit of color of that to that. So those 2 little pieces will go together, but that littlest piece I'm going to add some darker areas. So now we have our stamen pieces. So you have this little piece, then you have these 4 little tiny pieces, and I'm going to do that in a different color. I think I did that in the YR23, I think. But you guys can definitely see the caps to know which colors I'm using for sure. So little dots of glue, and then using my embellishment wand to pick those pieces up, and then I can add my color to that. Now let's put these pieces together. You have those 3 little tiny pieces. I kind of did this out of order and I apologize, but those 3 little tiny pieces are added to the 3rd smallest piece. So you have a big piece, a medium-sized piece, that small piece, if that makes sense. So I'm sorry that I adhered it kind of backwards. Normally I think I'm pretty good about adhering that correctly. But look at how beautiful that is. It always is so stunning when you put these lovely layers together and the dimension that you get. And I'm a person who loves dimension on my cards, so these are just absolutely my favorite. Now let's color the leaves. I'm using YG63 and 67. You have a big cluster of leaves, you have a stem, a little side piece. I'm going to add a bud to that, which is that kind of smaller ovalish piece on the right there. I'm coloring it right now. And then you have your stem. And if you're going to do multiple flowers, then do multiple stems. Just coloring those really quick. I usually tend to go over a couple times to get a nice good blend, but I think that's just a personal preference, so there's no rules to it. Then you have the pot, and I'm using BG 96, 93, and 90, and it has some embossed detail on it. I will highlight that with one of the markers and a white gel pen. Now the BG 90 is really light in the center, and I wasn't liking how it was blending, so then I decided to just use the BG 96 and 93. I used the BG 90 for the bottom piece. at the base of the planter. But I'm just not liking that, so this is where I cover it and decide we're just going to do something else. So let's adhere the bottom piece to that, but that will give it a little bit of a different look using the BG90 for the bottom. I'm using BG96 to add color to the dots, which I will do here in just a little bit. Now let's put our little flower together. So a little bit of glue. I'm going to adhere the leaves a little bit up higher so there is a stem, because that stem is going to go into that bulb. That little curved piece is going to have the little bud on it. So I'll put that in place. We can adhere the flower to the top, but like I said, if you wanted to do multiple flowers, you would add multiple stems. They could be taller, shorter, so you can have a much fuller bouquet of flowers, but I wanted just a singular one for this card design. Let's add the pot at the bottom. And then I decided I needed to blend a little bit more, so I brought in those red markers again to blend in with the flower. I think this is really pretty, and I think this is a really beautiful flower. So I'm just going to blend those outer leaves really quick. And then I'm using the BG96 to fill in those dots, just to give that pot some more interesting detail. Okay, for our background, I have a really dark blue cardstock. I'm ink blending a little bit of black soot around the edges. And I'm doing my ink blending first, and then we will do some die cutting. I'm using the Scattered Stars A2 cover plate. This is such a fun die. So I'm going to tape that in place, but look at how stunning that is against that background. And it's pretty without the die too, but this die is way too much fun. So I'm taping this in place, and then I'm going to run this through my die cut machine. And it's going to emboss and then also have little holes in it that are star shaped. And we're going to add something behind that makes it look super, super pretty. I wanted something that kind of shined in the background behind this. So I decided to use some gold mirror cardstock. I'm going to add some tape runner and some liquid adhesive. Because I am using a gold mirror cardstock, I didn't want to use just liquid glue because it would slide around everywhere, and I don't want my mirror cardstock to get all gummy from the glue. So the foam or the tape runner will hold that in place while the liquid glue dries. But look at how pretty that is, and when I turn it and it is so shiny, I love that. I'm stamping the sentiment from the Heart Be Light stamp set with metallic gold ink. I stamped it a few times to get a good stamp or a good image, and it says, "In the air, there's a feeling of Christmas." I will use the coordinating die to die cut that out. So I'm going to tape this in place with some low tack tape, and then we can get our card together. I've decided I'm not going to add any other sequence or anything because that background is so sparkly that it doesn't need that. So let's get this sentiment going. And of course I want to add some dimension behind the sentiment, but this is going to tuck in. I'm going to move that flower to the left of the card, and then the sentiment will kind of tuck in between the two leaves. So here's that foam tape for dimension. And I'm going to use my tweezers to place that down. First, let's adhere our little background or our flower here using some liquid glue. You could also pop this up with foam tape, but I felt like it had plenty of dimension. So that looks really pretty like that. Let's put that sentiment in here. Then let's add a few details, of course, with a white gel pen. I'm going to add some tiny little dots in the embossed circles of the pot, some highlights to the leaves and to the flower itself. I don't want to do too much, but I did do enough. But you could always leave this stuff out, but I think it adds a little something extra. And then let's take a look at this up close. Look at that background. That beautiful die is so, so pretty. Thank you guys so very much for stopping by and watching. I hope that you enjoyed this project, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.